Good morning. I hope you had a very celebratory holiday. A highlight of our year, Subastero. You should be waking up early to dance through the year. So maybe we could start a share at 6:30. That would be really proper. I wanted to continue what we're learning. We started to say the prayer for the rain and how that is likened to the Hashpa Satipa, which is conception. The soul is conceived on Shmini Atzeres. We were just conceived, and the whole idea of conceiving is to apply das. To conceive of something means to have something in mind. You pay attention, and it becomes rain. Rain is something that is a thought, and it becomes magusham. Geshem is material, something that, like water, is likened to wisdom. When that materializes, you could see how the das played out. So it's Hamshachas Atipa. It's the groom, what he gives to us, the Jewish soul, how you apply das to that and bring rain. Okay, so I want to put that as the introduction for continuing. That we explain how there's a difference between a betrothal period where it's a promise. We said it's like the oral tradition of the Torah, how it's the interpretive element, and how there is the shine that is received from that, and how there's a much deeper connection in contrast to that. And this is where it describes that. It has to do with understanding how, although we have three avos, there's a process of chesed. The world starts with chesed. The world begins with kindness. So Abraham, welcome. Abraham is this kind person that welcomes guests and gives wisdom. Yitzchak wanted to guard that, and he wanted to dedicate that. Yitzchak is davening. Yitzchak is protecting, in being insular even, in a way, like Shlomo Melech, everyone came to him. Yitzchak is likened to Shlomo Melech in that sense. And specifically Yitzchak, we're going to call Avinu. It's odd because Yitzchak was the father also of Esav. But Yaakov and Esav are meant to go walking off into the sunset, happily ever after, working finally together with the energy of Tehu, of Rome, perhaps, and the organized world of Israel, Jewish people. Take all those resources and organize them in the right way, put a Jewish king on it, and you've got the recipe for Mashiach. Okay, so Yitzchak becomes the hero. Yitzchak represents also what Levi comes to represent. The Levim are all about davening. Yitzchak is characterized as going out into the field and davening. And then he finds a shidduch. It's about unity. Yitzchak, everything was dependent on the unity of Yitzchak with Rivka. Yitzchak only had one wife. He only lived in the Holy Land. And specifically, we will call our father because in merit of what Yitzchak represents, we inherit what the promise of Yitzchak, of Isaac is. Welcome. I have a grandson named Isaac, God bless him. Yitzchak is the promise of Tzchak, of laughter. Tzchak v'tainu, in pleasure. Yitzchak is this disciplined person that puts in the hard effort, and that represents the Jewish people's toils and tribulations for thousands of years. And finally, the promise of laughter. The reason why Robert Plant can't get his head around, does anyone remember laughter, is because this laughter is a promise for the future. You can't remember it. It has to unfold. Okay, it's just one chapter. It's early. I want you guys to get into the habit of waking up early with me, because I think that's the only way that the world can function properly. We have to get the 7 o'clock minyan. They should publicize all these things, put everything on. If we're gonna have how much data do we have, like cars driving by in the night? You know, have the internet filled with minyanim. Let another Jew, without having to get out of his house coat, see a Jew giving his heart out to Hashem. Why not? No, I'm not the photographer, so, you know, if you want to set up the camera, that's a good project. Now we're going to understand why there's such importance placed on the shidduch, the marriage, that Abraham wants to initiate for his son. He realizes his son Yitzchak, Isaac, he's still mortal, and he risked his life in the Akedah, the binding of Isaac. And now he wants to make sure that the promise of laughter has a future. So he has to marry him. There has to be a unity, a yichud of two worlds, Yitzchak and Rivka, in order to give birth to the promise of laughter. Okay, so that story unfolds with the slave Eliezer, who was the Eved of Abraham. Shenemar v'yemer ha'eved hagmi'ini namat mayim mikadech. This slave tells what ends up to be the future shidduch of Yitzchak, Rivka Imenu, Rebecca. He says, give me a little water from your water thing. Sheyumshach hashefa zu, that this divine energy should be channeled. Afilu l'bchinas neshamas habayim v'sitra de'eved. The reason why it's so important that the story's told with a slave doing this mission. Why doesn't Avram get up, put on his donkey saddle, and go off to do the mission himself? What did he have to do at home already? It's a bit hard to understand. You know, he was so excited to go off to do the Akedah, and now he doesn't want to do it. It's very hard to understand. But here we're saying that you need to be able to send the servant. The slave in us has to also have the fulfillment of the promise of laughter. So he gets involved with this shidduch. There are souls that come, the Alter Rebbe teaches here, Pititera, Place of Bracha, we're just finishing, okay, we're daily. That come from the world of the slave, the Eved. So Eliezer, the slave, tells us the story. And look it up in Zion. Vel'il perish Eved al teresh ha. And here when we say slave, we really mean the interpretive aspect of the Torah. Become upon him, but there's many facets of the Torah. It speaks in many directions at once, but all coming from the same heart idea. Welcome, good to see you. Wow. Melly, that's awesome that you can come out here. Sometimes people don't like to be called out because it's like, am I supposed to be, am I being billed right now for this? And then therefore my employer could come, or whatever reason they have. But I only mean it in the most positive sense. So the Eved, the slave, it becomes the instrumental factor to make this match come together. And why is it specifically Rivka who is the one who is discovered? So why there's four Imenu, there's four mothers. Why Rivka here is so fundamental. So our sages teach And of course, you understand why this is important to me, because it's describing the promise of the future redemption. Because we are destined to attribute our descendants specifically to Isaac, to Yitzchak, and call him our father. Ki Avram lo yadanu, because we don't know Abraham. Ve'inyan kin Avrahamu chesed, and Abraham represents kindness, so you'd think that would be a good thing to put. I mean, we start the Shemona Esrei with Magen Avraham. Specifically, we focus on Abraham. You can make the claim that the first of the fathers is most important. Here we put the center of the or. Can you say that? You know what I'm doing. Ve'inyan ki Avram hu chesed v'sheisher mechesed de'atikemi. So there's an ancient one who has two aspects. He has kindness and he has severity. Which one is more prominent? We know Chesed's more prominent. The right side is stronger. So why does Yitzchak become the promise of this ascension of the left side? It has a higher source. We'll see. It's the Levi. The Yitzchak hu bechinas gvura, because Yitzchak is severity. And it has its source also in the Actic Union. But there's going to be you know, in like the movies, they have like a character that develops and becomes like Don Quixote becomes the other guy, and they switch roles. It becomes more interesting. So we have the prominence of the right of Chesed, of the origin beginning with kindness, but destined for the laughter associated with severity of discipline, of prayer, of fire. And that is comparative to the advantage of gold over silver. I mean, it's like so many times more. Historically, it's always had that superiority in value. So here, gold represents the service of God through the characteristic of gvura, discipline, fire. So fire is gold. And that is the destiny of Levim. They're going to be the Kohanim. They're going to switch prominence, not function, but prominence. I mean, it's always the Levi who's washing the man's hands. That's pretty humbling. You illustrate the preeminence of Chesed, but that servitude, the slave who Eved Avraham of Abraham is meant to make a shidduch with that, Yitzchak and Rivka. So they represent two different frequencies, we'll see. But Yitzchak is also expressed by the Levim, Kahanim, because they also undergo this transformation of being in a more servile, is that a word? Servile role, and then that dedication and devotion ascends and usurps in a way, but in a nice way. Whatever the nice of usurp is. The reason for all this is because Isaac is laughter. As his mother Sarah said, God has made laughter for me. So he's named after that laughter. Perish tzchaiku, what is this pedestal for laughter? That's tainug. And a specific type of pleasure is laughter. Haneled nedavar chiddush. You laugh when you have a new way of seeing something. When you want to appease a king, it says you either bring him a child or a parrot. A talking bird, that's a novelty. A baby is always a novelty, we know that. But I think the chiddush is the parrot. The parrot is a talking bird, that's innovative. So you take something lowly like an animal and make it talk, bam, you have laughter. And there's a pleasure that provides. Upela, it's also a miracle. al derech mashal, like by way of allegory. When you make a gladiator fight and you put animals in the ring, and that causes laughter. If you're a king, you get amused by that. With two wild beasts going at it together, tearing each other apart. In order for the king to be amused. That is what's really going on now when we're in the 288 sparks of darkness, let's call them, and you have to sift out the light from underneath all the dirt. That is the promise of laughter, of seeing what you did when you had to fight your lower impulses when they were wrong. And sometimes your lower impulses get me right, but you have to have integrity to do it, to accomplish that. Kasher is the amusement, the innovation, the novelty, the amusement is taking darkness and making that shine. Umariru lemiska, and the murker, the mar, the bitterness, the kar, the coldness, turning that into sweet warmth. That will be the future destiny of laughter, to see how all that darkness brought so much light when we finally face it and overcome. Etzla Yisbarach, and the delight is not just ours, it's Hashem's delight. Li'ais davar chiddush, to make it was a gamble to make creation. Is goodness going to prevail? Look at how the Holocaust sort of was almost the worst narrative you could ever write, because they would be writing the narrative of history forevermore. Chas v'shalom, had they not been obliterated. But it's the ideas that they represent that are still haunting us, and even, you know who I'm talking about also. I'm just afraid of all the robots there. Just, what's the point? I'll let the pundits deal with the guys with the fancy hairdos. The laughter isn't something innovative, that the potential for evil that exists in the material world, will be transformed into good. So ultimately you're intended to face evil, assert yourself over it. Vura also means might, strength. And not just shun it or dispel it even, but to transform it. You convince it. I see my place, the Klippa says, and I'm proud and honored to be a part of what my purpose is. You know, the snake is going to be a shamash gadol, a big waitress. L'tayv v'yala lebechinas kedusha. Sometimes I translate things a bit comically, if you haven't noticed. So it's poetic, not justice, hopefully, but poetic license. V'yala lebechinas kedusha. And that darkness of the potential for evil in the physical world will now be something glorious for the forces of light. Luke Skywalker and company. V'zeu tzchik asali elkim. That's why Sarah says, God made a celebration of laughter for me. Dedav kum bekinas shem elakim. That's why she didn't say a different name for God. There's plenty of names. There's 10 names for God. So why would we say this? Elohim, because that is the nature of darkness. That when it's transformed to light, it's a much more spectacular display. It's a kanigi, a spectacle. Hamastir, that conceals. Nim shachatzchaik, that's the conduit for laughter, for joy, for celebration. Kasher ishafka chashecha. When this darkness and this veil is transformed, it's like I trick my dog. You put up your collar really high over your nose, and the dog has no idea who you are all of a sudden, not very bright. and starts barking at you. And then when you pull it down, the dog goes crazy. All that darkness became the happiest thing ever because I am a liver to this dog. You know, dried out and delivered to their mouth, to their snout or whatever it is. So there is an amusement that we cause to Shem Elohim, to nature, divinity within nature. Kitzchaiku bechinas hatainug, and this laughter is pleasure. Hanayla midabra chiddush. That's brought about through an innovation of a pella and a miracle. I'm reading back, but it sounded new, didn't it? It sounded like it fits in perfectly, and now we understand it deeper. That's why Sarah says it in the past tense. God has made for me a reason to laugh. And then she says, whoever hears about this will laugh with me. Lashon asid in the future tense. So there is this transformation, there is this timeline for Birurim, Haim Hashbashis al Feshame, in the 6,000 years that the world is destined to go. I'm reading this thing about the Kate, the end time, and one of the things I read says that it was impossible for Mashiach to come before a certain point. And that's hard to understand because it's a halacha that Mashiach can always come instantly, and we know certain instances that Hashem was going to bring Mashiach to the world, and it was just like at the last second. So, Birurim, facing the world and being challenged by it, is a temporary state. The laughter is when you no longer have to fight anymore and you could just sit at the table together and feast with your Yetzirah. But this is just a promise. So when is the promise ever going to be experienced? That's called Lasid Lava, in the future redemption. We're supposed to take the future redemption and bring it in, okay? I've told you this many times. When you complete all the rectifications required, V'zeu lashon asid. And that's why it's said, whoever hears this will laugh. So when you hear, when you listen, when you understand this idea, it's the promise of the future laughter coming through now. So I'm putting this in the present tense based on the Rebbe's, prophetic remarks that we've entered the final thing after with final Berurim. We're now on the next stage. So if you're going to understand that and open your eyes to that, this is what it means. Okay, we finished half a chapter. Let's do the next half in 5 minutes or 7. So the whole idea of confronting these 288 sparks in the world, Nikra Ha'alas Man, that's called showing initiative from the feminine perspective, which is the soul. With respect to the Creator, we take on the feminine polarity. That's called Man. Feminine waters. V'kol ha'alahu al yedei v'chinas gvuras de'er chayzar. And all of this is made possible from the gvura, the severity, the fire of the reflecting black light. God shines down, we reflect back, and that's the fire of gvura. The water and chesed, of kindness, of giving from the Creator, and then our ability to reflect that back. That's Gevura, Yitzchak. So Yitzchak is a name that's a promise. It starts in a certain place, and it starts as a confrontation, as darkness, as a veil, and the veil is lifted to reveal spectacular ascension and brilliance. But Kamay Inyan Veseres, no. Kamay Inyan Baal Tshuva, Dechayala Yatir, like the one who returns to the faith that has greater strength than the seasoned veterans. Shehu al Yedei Tzakas Halev, because it is a transformation and crying out from the heart. So that is the source of your power. Your heart's crying out, so you're animated, you're transformative, and you're powerful. B'chol lev v'nefesh, with all one's heart and soul, u'ma'id might, the ability to break on to new, higher than you were. V'ka'ain Rebbe Eliezer ben Dordaya. So the same name of this slave that we spoke about, which was the servant of Abraham, is the same name as the classic and prototype, or David Melch's prototype, or Reuven, or Yehuda, or Adam Rishon. But he's like the crown of a Baal Tshuva. Someone who could do it in a moment, achieve the status of a Tana, of a Talmudic sage. From what? Being a hedonist his entire life and having one genuine cry from his heart, and in that moment achieve the greatest heights possible. Sheyatsa nishmasa b'dechia, whose soul flew out of him in crying when he realized that his entire life's purpose was wasted on his own sort of finite, fleeting pleasure. Va'anu Zal and our sages teach that you can acquire your promise of future reward, your whole world to come, in one moment. And that's the reflective light. Should we stop there? No. I just think there's a massive amount of thought in that. The next part gets a bit harder. I might have to stay there for tomorrow. I really want to do this 6:30 to 7. Let's try and establish a time. Later. Okay, we wanted to start Bereshis. I know everyone's eager to start Bereshis, but we're trying to finish the Simchas Torah teaching. I hope it didn't seem disjointed. Just rewind to the beginning, you'll see there'll be some connection to the last class. So I really hope you had a good Simchas Torah. It's very important. That's your source of joy for the entire year. And I guess whatever you went through, even the tough times that you might have had in Simchas Torah, is precious also. Have a great day.